I paid my sister's bills for 18 months straight. Rent, utilities, emergencies, even some extras I pretended not to notice. I thought I was helping her through a rough patch. I thought I was being a good brother. Then I found out she and her fiancé called me their personal ATM with a keyboard. They laughed behind my back, so I didn't scream. I didn't confront them right away. I opened a spreadsheet, and when I plugged in my laptop at the next family meeting, let's just say their faces turned the same color as my PayPal history, completely drained. My name is Elias Mercer. I'm a software engineer, the middle child, the invisible one who always fixed the Wi-Fi and stayed out of the spotlight. But this time, I stepped forward, and I didn't come empty-handed. I grew up in a split-level ranch house in the suburbs of Houston, where everything looked picture-perfect from the outside. Trimmed hedges, birthday banners, holiday lights. But inside, the hierarchy was crystal clear. My older sister Delilah was the shining star. Homecoming queen, cheer captain, golden child. My younger brother Nolan was the carefree wild card who could do no wrong because he never caused any waves. And me? I was the quiet one, the middle child with straight A's and a quiet obsession with code. I fixed everyone's phones, helped Dad debug the printer, and spent weekends building small apps that nobody asked for. I wasn't a disappointment, just invisible. Which was fine. For a long time, I liked it that way. After college, I moved to Austin and clawed my way up the tech ladder. I started at $15 an hour, resetting passwords at a help desk, then scraped through a brutal coding boot camp while eating canned chili and pushing past burnout. 4 years later, I landed a senior software engineer role with a 6-figure salary and a team that respected me. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. Meanwhile, Delilah was still chasing the image she'd had in high school. She was working as a personal trainer at one of those eucalyptus-scented gyms that charge you for vibe. Her fiancé Chase? A self-proclaimed real estate disruptor who hadn't sold a house in months but somehow always had time for brunch and branded polos. They rented a $4,000 a month house in East Austin with white shiplap walls and a backyard strung with Edison bulbs. Their Instagram was full of sushi nights, rooftop cocktails, and matching Lululemon hauls. If you only looked online, you'd think they were thriving. But I knew the truth. Or at least, I would soon. It started one Tuesday night. I was midway through a game of Apex when Delilah called me in tears. That alone was a red flag. My sister never called unless something was wrong, or she needed something. She said they were 3 months behind on rent, their water was about to be shut off, and their credit cards were maxed out. She sounded panicked, humiliated even. And I felt bad, genuinely bad. Maybe it was the old memories of her sticking up for me in middle school. Or maybe it was guilt from having more than enough while she was drowning. Either way, I wired her $2,000 that same night. She said it would only be for 2 or 3 months tops. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The first payment felt good, like I'd done something meaningful. Delilah texted me the next morning with a string of heart emojis and a photo of their dog holding a little sign. "Thanks, Uncle Elias." I actually laughed. It felt like family, like maybe things were turning a corner. The second payment came a month later, another emergency, Chase's real estate license renewal fee, she said. "It's time sensitive," she texted. "We're about to catch a break." I hesitated for half a minute, then hit send. I even made her a budgeting spreadsheet, color-coded, optimized, and linked to a Google sheet she never opened. By month 3, the pattern was set. Delilah would send a Venmo request, sometimes with a cute caption, sometimes just a dollar amount and the emoji. It became routine. I was bankrolling their survival. Or so I thought. But then I started noticing the posts. While I was heating up meal-prepped chicken and brown rice, Delilah was posting her dinner at a new Peruvian fusion place downtown, sake flights and all. While I was holding off on upgrading my graphics card, she was showing off her Dyson Airwrap in a full makeup tutorial. Chase, meanwhile, had apparently reinvented his wardrobe. New loafers, linen blazers, monogrammed cufflinks. It looked expensive. It was expensive. And I started to do the math. They weren't just surviving. They were thriving, on my dime. I'd been cutting back on my own 401k contributions, trying to keep enough in savings just in case something happened. I downgraded my coffee habit, skipped 2 vacations, and was still holding on to my old Civic even though the AC had started wheezing. But they were sipping mimosas in marble-tiled kitchens and hashtagging hash, grind time, and hash blessed from $200 brunches. I told myself it was temporary, that Chase's big sale was just around the corner, that Delilah was just going through a rough spot. But deep down, a part of me knew. They weren't struggling, they were comfortable, with my money as their cushion. The worst part? I defended them. When my best friend Nate pointed out that I was being used, I brushed it off. They're just bad with money, I said. They need guidance. I even tried to convince myself that this was what family was for, that helping now would pay off later. But later kept slipping further away. The Venmo requests kept coming, now with less context, more urgency. One even came with the note, booking a once-in-a-lifetime Airbnb. Can you spot us till Friday? A vacation. They were asking for emergency funds for a weekend getaway. That night, I stared at my bank account and realized something cold and clear. They weren't treating me like family. They were treating me like a subscription service, with automatic deposits, and I was about to cancel. Mom's 60th birthday fell on a Sunday that felt like Texas had finally remembered it was winter. We'd rented a cozy event space in South Austin. Nothing fancy, but charming in that exposed brick and string lights way. I showed up early, like always, helping Dad test the slideshow and make sure the catering setup wasn't a disaster. It was one of those family events where everyone's half smiling, trying to play nice, pretending no one's keeping score. Delilah and Chase arrived almost an hour late. Chase pulled up in a freshly detailed BMW, leased, I later learned, and Delilah stepped out wearing a designer dress with the tags still tucked in. She looked stunning, camera-ready, too perfect for a family gathering. They breezed in like celebrities, hugged Mom, posed for photos, passed out compliments that sounded just slightly rehearsed. I kept my distance, sipping a flat beer and chatting with Nolan about his new job. It wasn't until after dinner, while clearing plates in the kitchen, that Aunt Ruth cornered me. She's my mom's older sister, the family truth-teller. No filters, no sugarcoating. If your pants didn't fit, she'd say it. If your boyfriend sucked, she'd bring a list of reasons. She pulled me aside, lowered her voice. Elias, we need to talk. It's about Delilah and Chase. I braced myself. Let me guess. Another rant about their spending? She shook her head. No, honey, worse. She'd been at a baby shower last week, sitting at the same table as Delilah and Chase. There were mimosas, loose conversations, and apparently, plenty of mockery. They were talking about you, she said, her expression tight. Joking, calling you their personal ATM, said you were too busy playing with your little computers to have a real life. My stomach dropped. They said you only gave them money because you were guilty for being a lonely tech guy, she added. That Delilah could keep you paying just by pretending to need help. I felt split, part rage, part shame. Mostly a deep kind of betrayal I couldn't explain, not just because they said it, but because I had believed the opposite. I swallowed hard. Why are you telling me this? She looked at me, really looked at me. Because you're a good man, Elias, and you deserve to know the truth. I watched them tonight, taking selfies in front of decorations you paid for, then laughing at you behind your back. I can't stay quiet about that. At that moment, through the cracked kitchen door, I could hear Delilah's laugh echoing, bright, confident, hollow. I didn't confront her, not yet, not there. I just nodded slowly and said, "Thanks, Aunt Ruth." Then I walked out of the kitchen and began planning the meeting that would burn their fake little empire to the ground. The family meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon at my parents' house. Mom called it a conversation to clear the air, which in our family meant everyone sits awkwardly in the living room while we pretend this isn't a slow-motion explosion. But I wasn't coming to talk. I was coming to show. I arrived early with my laptop, an HDMI cable, and a folder titled Delilah and Chase. Exhibit A. Mom looked nervous as I plugged into the TV, muttering something about, "Maybe we don't need visuals." I smiled and said, "It'll help with clarity." Dad sat in his recliner, pretending to scroll his phone, but clearly watching. Nolan took a spot on the couch, grabbed popcorn from the kitchen, and whispered, "Oh, this is going to be good." Aunt Ruth was already there, calm and unreadable. Delilah and Chase walked in late, as usual. She had perfectly done hair, artfully smudged eyeliner, and an aura of someone about to spin a story. Chase wore one of his too tight polos and a watch I knew was fake because I'd seen the AliExpress listing. They froze when they saw the TV. "What is all this?" Delilah asked, her voice already laced with defense. "Just a little presentation," I said, cueing the first slide. "Since this meeting's about money, I thought we could walk through the numbers together." Slide 1. A clean timeline showing 18 months of payments, every Venmo, bank transfer, and emergency fund, mapped next to screenshots of their Instagram posts. Rent request followed by sushi dinner. Utility crisis followed by luxury spa weekend. Delilah's jaw tightened. Chase muttered, "This is taken out of context." Slide 2. Their public social media post geotagged at 5-star restaurants, boutique stores, rooftop lounges, cross-referenced with text asking for help that same week. "This," I said, "is you asking for rent on March 10th. And this is your treat-yourself brunch on March 11th, $480, including a lobster tower and bottomless mimosas. Care to explain?" Chase shifted. "That was a client meeting." I clicked again. #date night. Doesn't scream business expense. Delilah tried to laugh it off. "You're making us look bad on purpose." "No," I said. "I'm showing the truth you already made." Slide 3. The spreadsheet. Itemized. Highlighted. Color-coded. Rent lies in red. Wellness retreats in orange. Lululemon hauls in yellow. "You built your lifestyle around my money," I said, and then mocked me for giving it. Then came the final slide. A quote from Aunt Ruth, verbatim, and a list of everything they said about me at the baby shower. Delilah went pale. "Is this true?" Mom asked, voice trembling. Delilah started to cry. Real tears this time. "You don't understand. We were stressed. We had to keep up appearances. Chase's clients. Have you even closed a deal this year?" I asked. Silence. "Did you ever plan to pay me back?" Chase stood up, indignant. "This is a hit job. You're acting like a stalker." I clicked again. "You mean because I tracked the public posts you made, while you were literally tagging your sushi rolls? Not stalking, Chase. Just paying attention." Dad finally spoke. His voice was low but firm. "Elias, keep going." For the next hour, I showed everything. Receipts, statements, a chart of their spending compared to the average American household, a map of their vacation routes. When I finally closed the laptop, no one said a word. Then Mom, holding back tears, said something I'll never forget. "I'm ashamed of both of you." That was the moment it all cracked. The fallout came faster than I expected. It was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion, except I was the one who pulled the bottom card. Delilah and Chase's social media presence went dark that very night. No more filtered selfies or hollow captions about grinding and manifesting. One day they were posting oat milk lattes and gym selfies, and the next, radio silence. The influencer mask cracked wide open. Within a week, the BMW Chase used to flex on his so-called clients vanished from their driveway, repossessed. Funny how leasing a luxury car without making the payments eventually catches up to you. I imagined him watching it get hauled away while refreshing his Zillow profile like it might fix his life. The irony? My old Civic, the one they used to joke about, was still parked outside my condo, running like a champ. Then came the eviction. Turns out, they hadn't been paying full rent for months. They were skimming from the money I sent and using it to fund their curated lifestyle. $18 cocktails, custom neon signs, luxury candles with French names I couldn't pronounce. Their landlord had enough. The eviction notice went up in big red letters on their fancy black door. Their modern farmhouse aesthetic couldn't protect them from reality. Chase tried to salvage his career with a rebrand. He posted a half-hearted story about going independent, then disappeared when someone, I won't say who, shared screenshots of his fake listings and unpaid commissions with his broker. His license was suspended 2 weeks later. Now he sells pre-owned SUVs at his uncle's lot in Round Rock. No more marble countertops and drone-shot open houses, just discount financing and a paper name tag. Delilah tried to pivot. She started posting vague wellness quotes from Mom and Dad's guest bedroom. She held on to a few loyal fitness clients at first, but most disappeared once they realized her Equinox membership was gone, and the studio in her videos was really her teenage bedroom, complete with a cracked full-length mirror and a faded Jonas Brothers poster on the wall. Mom went through a short-lived denial phase. She called me, trying to smooth things over, suggested I could help just until they get back on their feet. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I just showed her my savings account and the spreadsheet I made the day after I cut Delilah off. She went quiet. Didn't bring it up again. Dad said less, but he started showing me his financial records, asked for advice, even admitted he wished he'd done that years ago. That meant more to me than I thought it would. And Nolan? Nolan stayed Nolan. He texted me a meme of someone sipping tea with the caption, "Tell me more." At family dinners, he'd raise an eyebrow whenever Delilah mentioned Mercury retrograde or her energy being off, and whisper, "That's 2 shots." But the real change wasn't with them. It was with me. For the first time in years, I wasn't living in reaction to someone else's chaos. My life was my own. I upgraded my PC, booked a solo trip to Tokyo, and stood at Shibuya Crossing watching the organized chaos of the world without feeling responsible for someone else's mess. I stopped apologizing for not being who they wanted me to be. I started appreciating who I already was. One gray afternoon, Delilah showed up at my door. No makeup, no filters, no theatrics. She said she was sorry, that she'd started therapy, that she finally understood how deeply she'd hurt me. She even said she'd try to pay me back. Someday. I didn't interrupt. I let her speak. Then I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot. A group chat with our cousins, dated just 2 weeks ago, where she'd called me a sucker and asked if anyone had ideas for getting back into the bank vault. Her face crumbled. "I don't need you to act sorry," I said. "I need you to be different. Until then, this door's closed." She didn't argue, just nodded, tears falling. Not the performative kind she used to fake, but real ones. She turned and walked away without another word. And I let her go. Because sometimes the only way to heal is to stop bleeding for people who treat your kindness like a tap they can turn on and off. It's been a few months since I unplugged from the role of the family ATM. The silence is nice. So is the clarity. For the first time in years, I'm not watching my paycheck vanish into someone else's curated chaos. I have my own routine now. Morning walks, real vacations, time to read without a Venmo buzz, breaking the peace. The down payment fund I'd once gutted to float their lifestyle is growing again, line by line, like healing in a bank ledger. I've had people ask me if I regret helping them, if I wish I'd done things differently. And the truth is, no, not entirely, because helping someone isn't the mistake. Believing they'll change when they have no reason to? That's the lesson. I don't regret the money. I regret letting it become a leash. Delilah and Chase didn't need saving. They needed consequences, and I finally gave them that. What I've learned is this. Boundaries are not cruelty. Refusing to be used doesn't make you bitter, it makes you free. Family doesn't mean sacrifice without reciprocity. It means respect. And when that's gone, the kindest thing you can do is walk away. Some days I still hear from Mom. She updates me on Delilah's progress, lets me know Chase is working on himself, whatever that means. I nod. I listen. But I don't offer money or pity, just patience and distance. As for me, I'm doing fine. Better than fine. I live in a modest condo I bought with my own money. My Civic finally died, so I replaced it with another used Civic. I keep things simple, quiet, peaceful. I still build spreadsheets, still like systems, logic, structure. But now, I use those skills for me. Because sometimes the most powerful code you'll ever write is the one that rewires your boundaries. And that's a program I intend to run for the rest of my life. My name is Rowena Vexley. I'm 31 years old, a wife, a mother of two, and a successful real estate developer. I own a beautiful 5-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood just outside Chicago. Every square foot of it built on my own grit, my own scars. I've spent over a decade clawing my way out of the dark hole my family tossed me into. And now, my father wants my house. Not just any house, my house. The one he didn't lift a finger to help me earn. The one I bought after rebuilding a life he helped destroy. He showed up after 16 years, looking older, slower, suddenly full of regret. But that wasn't even the punchline. He didn't come for closure. He came with my half-sister in tow, the golden girl he once disowned me for, and asked if I could let her have my house. No, really. He wanted me to give up my home so she could start her happily ever after. This is the same man who threw me out at 15, with a garbage bag and a warning not to ever show my face again. Now he wants back in, and what he doesn't know is, I remember everything. I remember the lie, the betrayal, the silence, and this time, I'm the one holding the door. I used to believe there was something wrong with me. When I was 7, my dad married a woman named Elaine. I still remember her lipstick the first day she moved in. Too red, too perfect. She brought sugar cookies and fake kindness and said she wanted to be my bonus mom. I didn't know what that meant. I was just a kid who missed my real mom, who had died of ovarian cancer when I was 4. My dad told me Elaine was a gift from God, a second chance at a family. For a while, I tried to believe that. She pretended to care at first, took me to ballet class once, helped me braid my hair. But the moment she had her own daughter, Justine, everything shifted. Suddenly, I was the loud one, the difficult one, the child who needed correcting. Justine, on the other hand, was delicate and sweet, and never at fault. Elaine made sure everyone saw her that way, especially my dad. My dad had always been hard on me, but after Justine was born, it turned ruthless. I'd bring home a B+, and he'd say, "Is that the best you can do?" Justine once brought home a C-, and Elaine clapped like she'd won an Olympic medal. "She's trying so hard," she cooed. Nobody asked if I was trying. No one noticed that I couldn't focus, couldn't sit still. Looking back, I probably had undiagnosed ADHD, but instead of helping me, Dad just yelled, "Why can't you be normal like your sister?" That became his favorite line. Elaine nodded along, always. He worked long hours back then, construction site manager, so I was alone with Elaine most evenings. That's when the games began. She'd forget to pack lunch for school, or accidentally shrink my favorite sweater in the wash. I once found her rubbing lipstick on my bedsheets, only for her to later drag my dad upstairs screaming, "Rowena's been sneaking makeup! Look what she's done!" I got grounded for a week. I was 9. I tried telling Dad she was doing things on purpose. He called me dramatic, said I was making trouble again. After a while, I stopped saying anything. She was good, too good. The way she twisted every story, every incident to make me look like a burden. The way she positioned herself as the long-suffering stepmother trying so hard. She had him wrapped around her finger. He didn't just believe her. He worshipped her. Justine was their little sunbeam. I was the cloud that ruined family photos. It sounds small when I say it out loud. Forgotten lunches, fabricated messes. But when it happens every day, when it makes you question your own memory, your own worth, it's not small. It's slow, invisible poison. And I was drinking it by the gallon. I started staying later at school, hiding out in the library, even volunteering to clean whiteboards just to avoid going home. My teachers thought I was dedicated. Really, I just couldn't bear another evening walking on eggshells around a woman who smiled like she pitied me and a father who never looked up from his coffee. I wasn't safe in that house. I just hadn't realized yet how bad it would get. It was just another Wednesday. I remember because Justine had to piano that afternoon, which meant I didn't have to walk her home. I took the long way through Lincoln Park, trying to breathe for once. That's when I saw Elaine. She was standing by the gazebo, pressed up close to a man in a suit. Grant. He'd been to our house before. I remember the way he always smiled too much, like he had a secret. I never liked him. Then they kissed. Not an innocent kiss. The kind of kiss people have when they think no one's watching. I froze. My stomach flipped. Then I ran. I didn't tell anyone. What was the point? My word meant nothing in that house. I'd be labeled jealous or dramatic. Elaine had spent years painting me as unstable, angry, hard to love. But things started clicking into place. Justine didn't look like either of them. Her hair was auburn, her eyes a shade too green. She looked like Grant. Then one night, I caught Elaine on the phone, whispering to someone. "He still thinks she's his. But we both know the truth," she said. I backed away before she noticed me. My hands were shaking. My throat burned with everything I couldn't say. That's when she started watching me. If I sat near Justine, Elaine appeared. If I helped with homework, she pulled her away. She was setting something up. I didn't know what, but I knew it was coming. And then, it did. I came home from school to 2 police cars. Elaine was sobbing on the couch, putting on the performance of a lifetime. My dad stood in the corner, red-faced and furious. They accused me of touching Justine. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I just kept shaking my head, whispering no, no, no. I told them Elaine was lying, that I saw her with another man, that she was trying to get rid of me. But my father didn't hear a word. He called me disgusting, said I was dead to him, threw a garbage bag at me, and told me I had 10 minutes to leave. I was 15. Elaine clutched Justine like I was a monster, while Justine looked scared and confused. I tried to grab my Game Boy, but my dad yanked it out of my hands. "Everything in this house is mine," he said. So I left. A trash bag of clothes, a backpack, $42 in my wallet, and a house full of people who never wanted me in the first place. The first night, I slept behind a gas station dumpster. It was early spring, still cold at night. I wrapped myself in the thin hoodie I had grabbed from the laundry pile and tried not to cry. But the tears came anyway. I'd never felt so invisible, so discarded. I kept hearing my dad's voice. "You're dead to me." That sentence rang in my skull like a hammer blow. I couldn't go to any friends' houses. Elaine had gotten ahead of me, told everyone I was troubled, dangerous. One mom slammed the door in my face before I even said a word. I found shelter in an abandoned warehouse by the train tracks. A few others stayed there, mostly older men who had lost jobs, homes, lives. One of them, a man named Tom, noticed me shivering under a pile of flattened boxes and offered me his extra blanket. Tom never asked questions. He just showed me how to survive, where to find places that handed out day-old bread, which fast food bathrooms didn't lock, how to look like you belonged even when you didn't. I learned quickly. Had to. Couldn't get a real job, too young, no ID. I scraped by cleaning gas station lots under the table. Sometimes I went 2 days without eating. Sometimes I ate from a trash can. The worst part wasn't hunger, though. It was the way people looked at me, like I was scum. After about 5 months, Tom told me he had a cousin in Chicago who managed restaurants. "You've got a brain," he said, "and fight, use it." He gave me the cousin's address and the last $40 he had. I didn't want to leave him. He was the closest thing to family I had. But he pushed me toward the bus stop. "You still got time, kid. Me, I'm too old to start over." I never saw Tom again. I arrived in Chicago exhausted, starving, and terrified, slept in the Greyhound station for a week. On the 7th day, I found the Italian restaurant Tom had scribbled on a napkin. Dave, the manager, looked me over like he wasn't sure what I was. I told him I'd clean anything. Dishes, bathrooms, floors. He let me start that night. For months, I slept in the back dry storage room. Just me, sacks of flour, and the constant hum of the walk-in fridge. But I had a job, a place to be. I scrubbed dishes until my fingers cracked. Then Dave taught me to prep vegetables, chop onions, stir sauces. The head chef, Marco, liked how fast I picked things up, taught me about cost margins, waste, inventory. At night, I went to the library, devoured books on business, management, real estate, anything that made me feel in control of something again. That's where I met Elliot. He was a regular, always polite, always curious. One day, he saw me reading a real estate finance book during break and asked me why. I told him I didn't want to wash dishes forever. He smiled. You won't. Turned out, Elliot was a business student. His father owned a property development firm. Elliot started asking me questions over coffee after shifts. What would you do with a vacant lot downtown? How would you redesign a failing retail center? I answered honestly. He always listened. One night he said, You should meet my dad. He's looking for new voices. I panicked. I hadn't finished school. Didn't even have a real resume. You're smarter than most college grads I know, Elliot said. So I borrowed a wrinkled suit from Dave and went to the interview. I was shaking the entire time, but I knew my stuff. I talked numbers, zoning, local trends. By the end, Elliot's dad said, Start Monday. That job changed everything. Within a year, I was helping manage projects. Within 3, I had my first investment property. I got my GED, took night classes, moved into a real apartment, started building a life. And all along, Elliot stayed close, supportive, steady. He never pushed, never asked too much. But he saw me. For the first time in my life, someone really saw me. It had been 16 years since I heard from my father. Then one afternoon, as I was sipping coffee in the office of my third property deal, a notification pinged on my phone. A friend request from him. I stared at the screen for a full minute. His profile photo showed a man I barely recognized. Gray hair, heavier, eyes sunken. He looked old. Not the angry, commanding figure who had once told me I didn't exist, just a man past his prime. And the message? Rowena, I know it's been a long time. I've made mistakes. Your sister misses you. Elaine and I would like a chance to explain. Please? I showed the message to Elliot that night. He read it, jaw tightening. You don't owe him anything, he said gently. But part of me wanted to know. Why now? After all this time? After all that silence? So I replied, Why now? His answer came quickly. Something about health scares, regret, reflection. And then the kicker. Justine's getting married. They're looking for a home. We'd love to reconnect before then. The wording set off alarms. They're looking for a home? What did that have to do with me? Elliot warned me again. You built this life. Don't let them reopen wounds they helped dig. But I said yes to the visit. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe some stubborn part of me still wanted to see him flinch when he realized what he'd done. They arrived that Saturday. My father looked smaller somehow, walking with a slight limp. Elaine looked unchanged. Same styled hair, same tight smile. Justine stood between them, now a woman in her 20s. She had Grant's chin, no doubt about it. They walked into my home like they had a right to be there. My father's eyes scanned the rooms with something between awe and judgment. You've done well for yourself, he said. I gave a tight nod. I had to. We made small talk. Justine admired the layout, the kitchen. She paused in the hallway, staring at the family portraits. Is this your son? She asked. Yes, that's Caleb. She blinked. So I'm an aunt. Her voice cracked a little, but I said nothing. I didn't know what to feel. Then my father placed a hand on my shoulder and led me toward my office, like he still had the right to steer my life. I need to ask you something important, he began, settling into my chair like he owned it. I stayed standing. It's about Justine. She and her fiancé are struggling to find a place. Market's crazy these days. My stomach turned. And then he said it. You've got all this space, 5 bedrooms. You could easily buy another home. I thought, maybe you'd be willing to sell this one to her, cheap. I just stared. You threw me out with a trash bag, I said. And now you want my house. For her? He blinked like he didn't understand why I wasn't handing over my keys. Rowena, he said. She's your sister. I let out a short, bitter laugh. You mean the sister you chose over me? The one your wife used to destroy my life? He flinched. That was a misunderstanding. No, it wasn't. I cut in. You called the cops. You threw me out. And now you want my house. For her? Elaine walked in just then, all polite concern. We all made mistakes, Rowena. Can't we move forward? Justine appeared behind her, looking uneasy. Is something wrong? I turned to her. You should know the truth before you ask for anything. Elaine's smile faltered. That's enough. No, it's not, I said coldly, because she's not even his daughter. The room froze. Justine stared at me. What are you talking about? She's Grant's. I saw your mother with him. I heard her admit it. Elaine shook her head. Lies! You've always hated me. But my father's face had gone white. He looked at Justine like he'd never really seen her before. Is this true? Justine turned to Elaine. Mom? No answer. My father demanded a DNA test on the spot. I didn't stay to watch it happen. I dropped the match, let the fire take what it would. A week later, he came to my office, hands shaking. No words, just a paper. 0% paternity. He collapsed into a chair and wept. But I didn't feel triumph. I felt hollow. He asked if I knew where Grant was. I didn't. Probably dead. Gone like the rest of this fantasy family. Later that night, everything imploded. He attacked Elaine. 3 fractured vertebrae. Justine called the cops. He's facing prison. Elaine's in rehab. The wedding's off. Now Justine messages me in the middle of the night, saying she doesn't know who she is. Asking for help. Amy tells me to block her. To let it go. And she's right. Because this time, I'm not the one pleading to be heard. This time, I have the power to walk away. I used to think that one day I'd get justice, that if the truth ever came out, I'd feel something, relief, satisfaction, maybe even peace. But when it finally did, I just felt tired. Everything I had carried in silence for 16 years had finally been dragged into the light, and all I could do was stand there, watching it unravel like a threadbare sweater. Justine's messages kept coming. Long, frantic texts about identity, betrayal, guilt. She wanted answers I couldn't give her, wanted connection, closure. But I couldn't be her lifeline. I wasn't the sister she remembered. I wasn't the lost puzzle piece that would make her whole again. She wasn't the girl who broke me, but she was still part of that story, and I couldn't keep rereading it, so I stopped replying. Amy and I focused on our family. Our son Caleb was starting preschool. Our daughter was on the way. The nursery was nearly done, pink and gray with little silver stars on the ceiling, soft rugs underfoot, a rocking chair by the window. The room Justine had once wandered through, eyes full of envy, wondering why we needed so much space. Now, every inch of it had purpose, a future, a place where laughter would grow instead of silence. Sometimes I caught myself thinking about Tom, the man who gave me the last $40 he had. I wish he could see me now, see the life I built, the family I protected, the strength I didn't know I had back then. The girl who once slept on concrete now owned 4 properties and had a waiting list of investors asking to work with her. Funny how life works. My father's side of the family started reaching out after the news broke, some to defend him, others to apologize for not stepping in years ago. A few even asked if we could reconnect. None of them ever looked for me when I was sleeping behind dumpsters. Forgiveness isn't a requirement for healing. Sometimes the only thing you need is distance, so that's what I gave myself. I never got revenge. I never needed to. Truth did what I never could. It tore the lies apart from the inside out, and in the quiet that followed, I chose peace. Not for them, for me.